story of Jack Smith is kind of, along with a lot of other people's story of what happened with careerism coming into the arts. Because you have to remember that Jack was one of the first art stars. Before Andy Warhol was an art star, there was Jack. In '62 with Flaming Creatures. Really, in the early '60s, it was Jack Smith and John Cage. They were like the first art stars. And Jack turned his back on it. And Jack turned his back on being an art star. Was it from his craziness, or was it a combination of his personality problems combined with his values? So he found himself in the early '80s being the odd man out, because what happened was, starting in the mid-'70s and picking up steam until the early '80s, was the beginning of this new class of artists that came out of the art schools, unlike artists from before who would go to art school, then come to New York, and they would forget everything that they had learned and forge forward with this kind of, basis maybe in the canon of whatever art form they're involved in, and go forward. These people were coming out like their spiritual brothers and sisters who were getting MBAs. These people were coming out of art school with the idea that they were going to make money. They were going to be famous and they were going to make money. And it was very much the beginning of careerism in the downtown art scene. Not that there hadn't been ambition before. There'd always been tons of ambition, but there was a different value system. So nobody really cared, let's say that an artist wasn't successful in the world. People looked just at their work, at their accomplishment. And so there was always a sense of respect for the work. Even people who didn't like each other, right? Even people who hated each other, would acknowledge each other's contributions. It wasn't like on a cheesy commercial business level, which it started to be on. So what happened when you get all these people pouring out of art schools, and we're talking right now, talking RISD, we're talking about, talking heads, that era, when people knew it was cool to go to art school, and then come to New York and be in the East Village, and they were all reading the Soho News, and they were all reading the Village Voice, and that's what they gauged, who was famous, who was important. That had never been true before because it had always been underground. Let me see if I can just get my hair looking like a little bit better. Okay, so now you have Jack Smith, 1981, age 51, 52. And what's happened is he's turned his back on the art scene, right? Years before, right? Mid-'60s. And went into a sustained criticism of the politics of art. Not only was he criticizing just generally American culture, but he was criticizing the people who he knew. People that he knew, whether it was Jonas Mekas, whether it was Richard Foreman, whether it was Robert Wilson. He was criticizing Andy Warhol. He was criticizing the people who were in the milieu. Meaning, he was biting the hand that could feed him, He, just before he died, he said to me, I never wrote those letters, I allowed them to, put me, keep me completely obscure. Like he was convinced that he did not have to participate in the new academic version of the art scene. So what I'm saying is these people, what started to happen was mid-'70s to late '70s, people pouring out of art schools, pouring out of colleges, coming to New York City, reading the Soho News, reading the Village Voice, and deciding that they knew what the art scene were. So unlike all the other generations of artists who had poured into downtown New York, these people didn't come into what was really the underground, which, the thing with the underground, that everybody wants to be in the underground, be involved in the underground. What they don't understand is that the underground accepts everybody. It's not like you have to be special to be in the underground. You just have to be willing. These generations didn't come in. So many of these people, we can target Mark Russell, PS 122, 1982. PS 122 is the performance art capital of downtown New York. Mark Russell doesn't know who Jack Smith is. Jack Smith is sending request after request to perform there and is ignored. Why did this happen? This wouldn't have happened in the way the world was set up before, because someone like Mark Russell would have known, when he got to New York, whenever that was, late 70s, who Jack Smith was, particularly since it was in the métier, in the form that he wanted to participate in. Let's go outside.